There are new developments surrounding the president's pick to become the next director of national intelligence. Because Jay Clayton was scheduled to appear at a Senate confirmation hearing yesterday. And then President Trump instructed him not to attend. That's because the president is angry at Republicans for working with Democrats on a bipartisan push to extend a key government spying program known as FISA. The president is also furious at Republicans for balking at his effort to fundamentally change how Americans register to vote. That means Bill Pulte, a close ally of the president with no intelligence or national security experience, appears set to take over as acting director of national intelligence, despite objections from both sides of the aisle. Let's bring in MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell. Michael, this is, to put it in a professional term, absolutely messy. What was the reaction on Capitol Hill yesterday? Because this happened even before we came on the air for Way Too Early, the president throwing out a Truth Social post and saying, actually, I don't think that we want to do the Jay Clayton hearing today anymore. And your reaction over text when I said it to you was, whoa. So what was the rest of the day like?
Yeah, well, initially, Allie, remember, lawmakers, senators were just waking up to this. So when they first learned of it, they were like, wait, what? Is that for real? Am I sure about that? They were completely blindsided by this. This was not something that Republican senators had gotten a heads up about. In fact, Republican senators, Democratic senators were gung-ho on moving forward with this Clayton hearing. The idea here was that there was going to be the confirmation hearing yesterday afternoon, with then a vote in committee today, and even potentially, likely even, a vote on final confirmation later today. Democrats were willing to give consent to that because they wanted to try to fast-track this confirmation to get him through, to get Jay Clayton through by the end of the day today, to prevent Bill Pulte from taking the reins of the acting DNI job tomorrow. Remember, this is somebody, as you mentioned, who has no intelligence experience, also somebody who Democrats are very concerned could potentially use his access to the nation's most top secrets and most sensitive intelligence to use it in a political way against the president's opponents. So after the shock aspect had worn off from lawmakers on Capitol Hill, including Republicans, they weren't happy about this. I mean, I spoke to Tom Tillis yesterday. He called this an unforced error. I spoke to Tom Cotton wrote on X that this was a regrettable decision. I spoke to Todd Young, who's a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which of course has jurisdiction over this. He called this inconvenient. Jerry Moran said that this was not the desired outcome of the Senate. The desired outcome was have this hearing, get him confirmed, and prevent Pulte from ever taking the acting DNI job. So there was the shock value, and then there was like well, why is this happening? And hey, this isn't actually good for anybody. And it just is the latest example of President Trump just completely undercutting Republicans, especially Senate Republicans, and they're starting to get real frustrated about it.
Well, I was going to say, because we started the week, it's only Thursday. I mean, we're almost at the end of the week, but we started the week with a piece from you saying Republicans were already feeling frustrated by the way that Trump just sort of is dropping little bombs in their path and complicating things that could be legislatively or procedurally easy. For example, putting the Jay Clayton nomination up within days of Trump saying, this is who I want to be the permanent director of national intelligence. Republicans and Democrats thought, OK, we're actually doing a thing that helps us accomplish the goal of reauthorizing FISA. And also, Republicans got a chance to confirm a presidential pick in what could have been under a week. I mean, they thought they were doing it right. And the president just kind of came in out of left field and once again scuttled the whole thing.
Yeah. We talk a lot about the phrase an own goal. Allie, this was completely an own goal by Republicans. And as to your point, it's just the latest in a string of examples. President rolled out that anti-weaponization fund. It thwarted their immigration enforcement bill. Then the president said that he was announcing Bill Pulte. Well, then it thwarted this FISA reauthorization. I think this is something also that gets lost in the shuffle when we talk about this issue. But FISA, Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, is probably the most important national security tool that the U.S. government has. It allows them to spy on individuals who are located outside of the U.S. The information that's gathered from FISA makes up for about 2/3 of the information in President Trump's daily intelligence brief. It's helped thwart a number of terrorist attacks in the United States. And national security officials and Democrats and Republicans are particularly concerned that this key tool is dark during a time when FIFA is happening in the United States, during a time when America 250 events are coming up. So, remove the practical impacts of this. But politically speaking, it's making life really difficult for Senate Republicans. And I talked to one House Republican last week who said it seems like folks in the White House sit around a table and try to think about the worst possible time to announce a decision or roll out a new project. and then they do it at that moment. Republicans really don't exactly know why the president is doing this. Some people think that he doesn't actually think about the impacts it has on Capitol Hill, and he just wants to get done what he wants to get done when he wants to get done. I spoke to another House Republican who said this is President Trump trying to chip away at the legislative branch and give the executive branch more power. However way you want to cut it and however way you see it, the through line here is that Republicans are frustrated. President Trump is making it way harder for them to do their goal. And instead of picking fights with Democrats, he seems to be picking fights with members of his own party.
Okay, but let's live in the world where that one Republican member is right. And the goal of this, from the president's perspective, is to chip away at the power of the legislative branch, which, let's be honest, the legislative branch has made pretty easy for them over the course of the past year and a half. Does this mean that there is finally an inflection point where Congress says, no, this is actually our power, we're going to start taking it back on whatever front we're talking about here?
There could be. I mean, we're certainly in a fertile ground.
Because they haven't done it yet, right?
No, they have not done it yet. We've teetered about it. They've come close to it. But as you like to say, Ali, we haven't really seen many of those profiles encouraged to this point. I mean, we are at a moment right now, which if there was any time to do it, these Republicans would speak out. We're past the primary season. So we're no longer at the point, we talk about this a lot, that it's way different running in a Republican primary versus running in a general election. With the primary, you're gunning for those conservative voters. The president's endorsement is key. A general, you're trying to vie for more of those independent voters. So certainly in the election calendar, we're in a spot where it could happen. Also, the president is nearing a moment where he's going to be a lame duck. And also, this is hitting folks where it hurts. When we talk about FISA, it's a key national security tool. Director of National Intelligence, it's an important role in the government. It was the top recommendation from the 9/11 Commission. And then Iran, for example, gas prices, it's hitting them where it hurts with their constituents. If there was ever a moment, it would be this one. Will it happen? Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, on the national security piece, too, FISA reauths and the DNI conversation that was happening, these were happening in bipartisan fashions here, right? You had Democrats and Republicans pushing for this reauthorization. It's not one of those clean party line splits when it comes to a policy on Capitol Hill. You've been tracking all of it. MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell. I have a feeling this thread still has many different ways to unspool, so we'll keep track of it when we all are on the Hill. Thank you, as always.
Thanks, Ali.